7 matches at the time of this recording. But we're going to make our predictions for this show. And of course, it's available on Bleacher Report. It's available on Fight TV internationally. And if you haven't ordered the pay-per-view yet for our international fans in the Babble section, we got a link in the description. It's an affiliate link. So not only do you get an awesome pay-per-view this weekend, but you also give us a little kickback to help support this channel, because the more support we get, the more videos and more episodes we could do. So we'll start with the non-title matches. Sting and Darby Allin versus Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. So this one here, for a while, they've been telling the story with backstage vignettes, backstage interviews. We've seen a couple matches in the ring between Darby and Jay Lethal. Jeff Jarrett comes out as the man that kind of knows how to expose Darby Allin and expose Sting. And now we have this tag team match. Who wins this match, Ralph?
Honestly, in my opinion, Darby's one of those underutilized guys, and unfortunate because he's one of those AEW originals, and it seems like he hasn't really done a whole lot at all. I don't want to see him lose to Jay Lethal or Jeff Jarrett, who just came into the company. I can't see them doing it, but I'm going to hold out hope here, and I'm going to say Sting and Darby.
I think this one's a tough one because, like you said, Jeff Jarrett just got there. Do they give the win to him and Jay Lethal? Jay Lethal was a guy who last year showed up on Full Gear as like a big debut. They haven't done too much with him. Hasn't really gotten any big wins. I think he's challenged for a couple titles. I think he challenged for the TNT title, if I'm not mistaken. Darby was a huge part of the beginning of AEW, and now kind of thrown in the back burner when you've gotten more and more names to the AEW roster, and hasn't really found his footing in quite some time. And I don't know if Tony Khan is booking him the way he was early on, because maybe he feels he lost the star power in Darby Allin, or just quite frankly, they can't find anything for him to be consistently on every week. And maybe a win here could help get that back on track for Darby Allin. But with that said, I think I'm going to go with Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett. I'm going with that. I think the story being told is with them, and maybe the loss with Darby and Sting could eventually lead to them splitting up and maybe lead to a Sting versus Darby match down the line. Darby beats Sting, and then he could go on his own, because I have to start thinking maybe it's Sting that's kind of weighing Darby down.
Just needs some type of meaningful storyline. It's kind of like he's just an afterthought, It's
right.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. But the next match we have is Jungle Boy versus Luchasaurus in a steel cage match. So this storyline, I feel like they're just extending so that we could get a proper match between Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. Obviously, what we saw at All Out, due to the fact that Christian Cage got hurt, we got this very short match, very frustrating for a lot of fans that were really anticipating Jungle Boy to get this big win at All Out after this huge push throughout the summer, only for Luchasaurus to turn on him before the match even starts, and the match ends in 19 seconds. I think Jungle Boy gets his revenge in this match. I don't know how he picks up the win in the steel cage match against Luchasaurus, but I'm going with the victory for Jungle Boy.
I agree. Yeah, I think Jungle Boy's going to get the win here. I think he needs the win, and I think eventually, whenever Christian's healthy, they'll revisit the storyline, and we'll get the match we were all kind of hoping for at All Out.
Next match we got is Saraya versus Britt Baker. Saraya's first match in 5 years, going up against the face of the women's division. This was going to be an interesting one to see, obviously, to see how Saraya does. And a lot of people are going to be watching this match under a microscope, given that, it's Saraya's first match in 5 years. How's the neck going to hold up? What kind of bumps is she going to take? Is it going to be a long match? Is it going to be a short match? And of course, does she beat Britt Baker? And how does that help the women's division as a whole? So I think this match, if it goes more than 10 minutes, I'll be surprised. I honestly will. I really don't think they're going to put Saraya in a match that long after such a long time. I think Saraya loses to Britt Baker due to some shenanigans with Rebel.
I agree. And if you remember back, I actually predicted Darby Allin was going to beat Punk, probably for similar reasons. Saraya is an investment. Obviously, she's a name. She's got a following. She came from WWE, so people know who she is. The one thing people have been critical of in AEW has been, well, one of the things, at least for a consistent basis, has been the women's division. The fact that the booking has been lackluster and it hasn't been a focal point. You have Britt Baker go over a major star like Paige or Saraya, then, that helps, one, solidify the fact that AEW has women wrestlers that are at the same level as whatever's going on in your competition. So I think Britt Baker is going to win. Saraya will be fine even if she loses because, one, she's been hurt, and two, she hasn't wrestled in 5 years, and she's going against one of the best in the business. So I'm going with Britt Baker.
Yep, and of course, I think there's still that story to be told with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker that they have to close out. The story with Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter that still hasn't bloomed yet. And then maybe revisit Britt Baker and Toni Storm too. So I think there's more that Britt Baker can get from winning this match than Saraya can from winning this match. Next match is the Eliminator Tournament Finals. The winner of the tournament will face the AEW World Champion at Winter is Coming. At the time of this recording, we don't have the two wrestlers that are going to be in the finals match. And if I understand the bracket correctly, rather than disqualifying Starks due to injury and advancing Lance Archer, they're having the match on Rampage.
Yep.
The winner of that match has to face Brian Cage also on Rampage. The winner of that match faces Ethan Page in the finals at Full Gear. So do you think any of those three, Archer, Starks, or Cage, beat Ethan Page?
I don't. I think that they've been trying to tell this story where it's kind of like the subplot, if you will, right? They're building this tension between MJF and what do they call it?
The Firm.
The Firm. So they're building that whole thing. If they're going to turn MJF face or keep him a tweener or whatever they're going to do with him, they need somebody to be that heel for him. And when you look at AEW right now, they don't really have a whole lot of heels, at least that they've been using on a consistent basis. Ethan Page can talk. He's not a bad wrestler at all. He just hasn't really done a whole lot. So I think this could be his opportunity maybe to be that guy to go against MJF. Who knows? But no, I don't see anybody beating him.
No, I agree. I think Ethan Page, they're setting it up because the rivalry between the Firm and MJF, or perhaps the fact that maybe MJF is in cahoots with the Firm and just making you think that he's rivaling with the Firm. And maybe MJF or maybe Ethan Page takes a knee and loses on purpose for whoever, or he wins the tournament and then does a finger poke of doom with MJF. I don't know what they do. I hope they don't go that route. Obviously, the story's there with Ethan Page and MJF. And I think that's the route they're going to go if Ethan Page wins the tournament. I think he does win the tournament, and we'll go from there. But now we have the championship matches. And there's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 championship matches on the card right now. And maybe they even add a couple more if they even have any titles left. But we start with the TNT Championship triple threat match. Wardlow versus Samoa Joe, who is the Ring of Honor TV champion, against Powerhouse Hobbs. Now, usually when there's a multi-man match of some sort, I usually go, all right, who are feuding with each other and who's the odd man out? The problem with this is they're all feuding with each other. So you can't play odd man out here. The only odd man out you could really do is Powerhouse Hobbs doesn't have a title, where Wardlow and Samoa Joe both do. Do they make Samoa Joe a double champion? Do they make Wardlow retain? Or do they make Powerhouse Hobbs a TNT champion out of nowhere because it's another guy where he's not really pushed that great in AEW, but he's had his spots of shine where the star power's there.
Yeah.
It's just, they got to book him better. They got to show him on TV more. And Wardlow, ever since he won that big match at Double or Nothing, got put on the back burner for Forbidden Door because he wasn't going to wrestle anybody, won the TNT title nonetheless, but his reign has not been that well done. You could say, oh, he's been champion for X amount of times, but how many defenses has he had in that time? Who has he beaten in that time? Most of this reign has been a tag team with Samoa Joe, which they just led to this split. So that title's coming off of Wardlow Saturday.
I'm going to go with Powerhouse Hobbs, but I agree. I mean, this has been one of the more disappointing title reigns for somebody that has potential, not somebody that got given an opportunity or got pushed just because, we want to see this person succeed. Let's see what he can do with it. He was legitimately super over, maybe the most over guy they've ever produced in AEW other than maybe like MJF. And he just hasn't done anything with the title. And I don't think that's his fault. I think, as you pointed out, he got put on the back burner going into Forbidden Door. He came back out after that and said, he gave that promo where he said he was going to be like a fighting champion or whatever. And, he was here to stay. And then he was gone from Dynamite. He's been mostly on like Rampage and in tag teams. And if they haven't done anything with him now, I can't see them doing anything with him, going forward, at least not unless he gets built back up. So I'm going to go with Hobbs on this match.
Perhaps they take the title off of Wardlow, rebuild him up, and he goes after MJF, knowing he already demolished him at Double or Nothing. And maybe they reverse the roles. If MJF is turning babyface, turn him. See what happens.
It's weird with AEW. Like, guys don't lose their shine, but it's not because of the way they're booked. Like, guys get super over either, because people respect them for their work rate or because the booking was good. But then it's like once they hit a certain point, they're put on the back burner, and fans will still cheer. You could say that
about WWE too, though. You could say that about WWE because it's not the kill, it's the thrill of the chase. They get to that point, they get to where they need to be, but then it's like, oh crap, what's next? And they just can't keep that momentum going because they can't tell the story they did to get the chase. They can't tell that same story after they've caught what they were chasing after. Kofi Mania, for example, was absolutely huge. And we were there when he won that title, and the crowd went nuts. After Kofi Mania at WrestleMania, he was a fighting champion, yes, and there were some good moments in there, but it wasn't the same that moment heading into Kofi Mania was, because they couldn't build that story up again. Then he loses to Brock in 8 seconds, so that didn't help matters. It's the same concept. But we've seen that time and time again in WWE too. So it's not just an AEW thing.
No, but the point I'm making, here's the difference. This is actually going to be I guess, more or less like a compliment to the AEW fan base. When sometimes in WWE, you get a guy who's super over, or whatever the case may be, you could watch Raw, you could watch SmackDown, depending on where they are. Guys don't always get a reaction in WWE. It's really dependent on what town or what city they're in. In AEW, I feel like if Wardlow went missing, like literally disappeared from TV for 5 months, didn't do anything, and his music hit, the fans would go nuts for him. There's always going to be those certain guys that are over to that level, even in WWE, but I feel like the AEW fans they react to more. They're invested in the product. They're invested in the wrestlers. FTR comes out. They've been off TV for 3 weeks, whatever. They'll get a good reaction. I can't say that Raw on any given night, you get somebody who comes out, they're going to get a huge pop. It really depends.
Raw the last couple weeks, their crowds have been crap.
See, as I say that, though, AEW last night was terrible. The crowd in Connecticut, our home state. So
maybe it was just a bunch of WWE fans that got paid to see AEW and just so they can take videos of the empty seats in the Total Mortgage Arena. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Last night was not a good indication for AEW because they're usually like amped up for everything. Maybe it was just kind of like a sign of the last few months that just the build's maybe not that good for not everybody's going to enjoy the build, which is fine. There are just going to be strong markets for AEW and weak markets for AEW. And there's going to be strong markets for WWE and weak markets for WWE. Oh, by the way, my prediction is I will go with Samoa Joe being double champion and win the TNT Championship. But next match, we have the return of the Elite, and they will challenge the Death Triangle for the AEW Trios Championship. There it is. We finally have somewhat of an answer to this whole damn thing that happened at All Out. The Elite are coming back. I think they're going to win those titles back. Then we just patiently wait for CM Punk on whatever decision they make with that. I think this match is still going to be good because we know the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers can have great matches together. We know Pac and Kenny Omega can have great matches together. I worry that if Rick Knox is the referee, things are going to get chaotic and he's just going to stand there while all 6 men are in the ring doing their spots. Meltzer will give it 9 stars. I'll probably give it 4.5, which will be a good match, but not a perfect match. But I'm excited to see what the Elite can do with the time off. And I'm excited to see how the reaction is going to be for when they show up. One thing the Bridgeport crowd did react to was the announcement that the Elite were challenging the Death Triangle for those trios titles. New Jersey should probably give a similar reaction. And then we just wait on Punk.
Yeah, I agree. They're coming back. They're taking those titles back, I think, and we'll see what happens from there.
Let's head out to our next title match. It's for the Ring of Honor Championship. It's a fatal 4-way. The Bride, Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Bryan Danielson, and Claudio Castagnoli. So one thing we have to point out here is Bryan Danielson has 2 wins over Sammy Guevara recently, and Claudio Castagnoli in 2 separate tag team matches pinned and submitted Chris Jericho. So with that said, Chris Jericho retains.
Using a little wrestling math.
Well, that's usually how it works, because the person that goes over on the go-home show loses on the pay-per-view, and I know people think that's a WWE trope. It's not. It's a pro wrestling trope. AEW's done it thousands of times already. Look at every pay-per-view, look at every go-home show, and prove me wrong on that one.
I guess I'll go with Jericho. I mean, look,
you're not interested in this match, are you?
It's not that I'm not interested. I just don't. I hate to say I don't get it, because I get it. I know what they're trying to do.
What are they trying to do? Because to me, it looked like they were trying to set up a double turn between Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia.
No, I'm looking big picture. I'm looking at they want somebody credible to hold. And Tony Khan said this in his interview with Ariel Helwani. He wanted Chris Jericho to hold that title because he needed somebody prestigious to hold the Ring of Honor title, to convince him to get TV and so on and so forth. Like, let's assume he gets TV for Ring of Honor. Him creating AEW and finding success as an alternative with some of the bigger names is going to be easier for him than creating another alternate promotion. People have a reputation about Ring of Honor, or a thought of Ring of Honor. They've seen it. It's been there. It's not been a company that has been able to challenge like the WWEs of the world. It's all of this effort going into promoting the Ring of Honor title. And again, like, you look at some of the booking decisions that Tony Khan has made, I think that by the end of this year, you can very realistically say that him trying to focus on, propping up Ring of Honor through Dynamite and Rampage may have been a blunder. Bryan Danielson is in a fatal 4-way match when he was supposed to be one of your guys, challenging for a title that I know they're trying to say is one of the most legitimate and prestigious and all that type of stuff. And it is to a certain extent, but Bryan Danielson challenging for that, like, I didn't think he was going to be involved in something like this when he came to AEW. I think he should be main eventing pay-per-views, not like in the mix for a title that somebody's holding to hopefully get TV.
If he's not in the world title picture, because Moxley's the champion, and right now MJF's going after the title, what's the next thing below that?
He needs to be in a storyline that is worthy of somebody of his stature. Is there anybody in AEW that came from outside AEW, that was signed to AEW, that has lost more stock? Has anybody lost more? A free agent that they've signed, have they brought anybody in that was at a certain level and dropped off more than him? Not because of him or his abilities or his capabilities to get over or be a great wrestler, just in the way he's presented to the fans. Bryan Danielson, this match is probably going to go on the middle of the card. Bryan Danielson was main eventing WrestleMania before he left WWE. Losing to the guy that's holding the title for, 2+ years?
Yeah.
Now he's losing to Daniel Garcia, getting tapped out, getting choked out, passing out. Put him in there with somebody that has some... He was wrestling Kenny Omega when he came on board.
But Kenny Omega's not there. He was suspended.
Well, that's Tony Khan's job, to make people get to his level.
Who is there?
Would you rather
wrestle?
Would you rather see him in that tournament to get that championship title spot, or do you think he should be wrestling for the Ring of Honor championship? I think he should always be in this.
Considering who's in that tournament, he's above that. He's above that.
Challenging
tournament.
for the AEW. Well, he should be in the mix.
He should be, like, if he's in that tournament, they have to put bigger names in that tournament. Because right now that tournament, and no discredit to anybody that's in it, but most of those guys have had either start and stop pushes or aren't on TV nearly as consistent as they should be. But Bryan Danielson is on TV each and every week.
Let me ask you this. Would you rather, we just talked about this match, would you rather Wardlow be in the match that he's in and Danielson be in the match that he's in? Or would you rather have them both come out of that bracket and wrestle each other at the pay-per-view for the next championship match?
I would rather them have both of them in the tournament.
That's what I'm saying.
The way the Eliminator tournament has been, and kind of always has been they kind of take a bunch of like lower mid-card or slightly upper mid-card guys, put them in that tournament, and then one guy wins to try to test them at the main event level. That's what they've done with that Eliminator tournament.
I get it. I'm disappointed that Bryan Danielson doesn't feel like a main attraction AEW at this point.
Fair assessment. I don't quite agree with it because he's on every single week. And while this whole Jericho Appreciation Society versus Blackpool Combat Club has had their peaks and valleys in this whole storyline for the whole year, he's still a main focal point week in and week out on Dynamite.
I disagree with that, but we can disagree.
Nonetheless, do you have Jericho winning this match?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Next up, we have the TBS Championship. Jade Cargill, who's still undefeated, going up against the faux TBS champion, Nyla Rose. Someone that definitely could be one that could dethrone Jade Cargill as someone that actually matches face-to-face with Jade Cargill here, but I don't see anybody beating Jade for a while.
The streak is whatever it is, but they're protecting her for a reason. I don't see her losing to Nyla Rose. This is kind of one of those things where they needed her on the card and they needed somebody for her to wrestle, so...
And beating a former women's champion in Nyla Rose gives her definitely another tip of the cap and far as that streak and trying to add credibility to that title reign and add credibility to her streak by beating Nyla Rose. But next up, we have the Women's World Championship, the interim Women's World Championship, I should say. Toni Storm versus Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter has probably been one of the most organically over wrestlers in AEW for the past 3 months, getting more and more people behind her. They're anticipating this turn with Britt Baker, or Britt Baker turning on her, whatever the case may be. Does it happen after she beats Toni Storm for the interim Women's Championship?
Look, they have got to start capitalizing when people get over and just strike while the iron's hot. They've done it before in the past. They did it with Wardlow going over MJF.
They did it with Toni Storm. Toni Storm was kind of over, when she won her interim championship, kind of died down by the moment she won it, but still, she was still over at that point. When she was finally getting support from the crowd, she got her title win. MJF, we'll see on this weekend if that same thing happens with him, but yeah, the AEW's definitely done it. So Jamie Hayter, this might be the time. And the thing is, do they want to change hands on an interim champion? Which I don't think AEW has done yet. They've never had an interim champion change hands.
I mean, if you do that, then you're essentially saying, look, Jamie Hayter, you're kind of put back on the back burner. Unless they kind of do build her up with Britt.
Unless Britt costs the match for Jamie.
Yeah, which is possible.
And that all depends on when each of those matches end up on the card. If it's where Britt and Saraya are first, Jamie's on later, or vice versa, maybe. But if it's where they're kind of like 1 or 2 matches apart, that's not happening. I think this is going to be Toni Storm retention.
Okay.
So that they could do Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm to unify those titles and have one undisputed women's championship. I don't see an interim title changing hands. Next up, the Acclaim versus Swerve in Our Glory, the third of the trilogy between these teams. The first match was a match of the year contender. The second one was a good match with some little convoluted
Weird
booking.
spots, yeah.
Not as good as the first match, but still good nonetheless. I think this match is going to be a good match nonetheless. There was a report that Anthony Bowens might have been injured on Wednesday in his match with Swerve Strickland. So perhaps the injury plays a role in this match, or it could just be a kayfabe thing to kind of, work the injury into the story of this match. I think the Acclaim still need to retain. I think the shoulder's more of a kayfabe thing than a real legit injury thing. Let's hope that's the case. And if that is the case, Acclaim retain.
I agree. They're super over. They're one of the best things they got going in AEW. Assuming Bowens is not hurt, then yeah, they should retain here, I think.
Main event time, the AEW
Already?
World Championship. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, we went
pay-per-view's not going to go by this quick, so.
The AEW World Championship. MJF challenges Jon Moxley. I mean, the story has been there about MJF where he wants to win this one for himself and earn that AEW World Championship. But best thing the devil ever did was convince people the devil didn't exist. Does he use the dynamite ring? Does he not? I know during the DraftKings promos, that question has been asked every time by Excalibur, because it's one of the questions that you have to ask as part of the AEW Full Gear pool, whether or not MJF uses the dynamite ring. So I believe it's going to be factored into this match somehow. Maybe he thinks about doing it and then throws it away.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't use it, but William Regal uses it. Maybe someone in the firm uses it. But that Dynamite ring is definitely going to be used in this match. I don't know if it's MJF, though. And that's what's great about this story, because they led you to believe so many different things. And the character established by MJF, you can't take what he says at face value. Although you can believe what he says because he does it with such great conviction, but his character has definitely made you think one way, and then he does a completely different thing just to piss people off. If he says he wants to be the best wrestler in the world, part of that means he has to turn babyface. You can't just be a heel forever and expect to be the greatest wrestler of all time. All of them had to work babyface and heel at some point in their career.
I feel like he could be the best heel in pro wrestling, but I think, and people respect that. People love him for that. I think for him to be that next generational star like he sees himself, he's going to at least have to be a tweener, and I think that's where he's probably best suited. Like full babyface, no way. I don't see that for him ever. I don't think that's the right call. But as like a smartass, like jock type, he'll still make fun of you. He'll still poke fun at fans, but he'll do it in like a playful way. That's what's best suited for him. And we've seen little glimpses of that, and I think he's great at it. A lot of little subtle things going on in this whole storyline. William Regal's involvement, their backstory, the firm's involvement. Are they going to help? I don't know which way to go with this. I have a feeling of what I'd like to see happen if they do intend to turn him face or tweener or whatever you want to call it.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, this is the same thing I talked about several weeks ago. I think he should lose. I think that Moxley should turn heel with whoever, the group that, it's him and William Regal, and, they cheat or do something to screw MJF, because MJF gets cheered, but it's not like he's gone full on tweener or face or whatever. I think that will make him sympathetic to the fans. I think he can go out there and cut a promo on Tony Khan and everybody else about how he's been held down. He was held down and cast aside by William Regal. He was held down and not given opportunities by Tony Khan and not paid what he should be paid, whatever. It fits right in with the storyline. And now, again, he gets screwed out of his opportunity and he demands another title shot. Somehow he gets back to the title as a face, wins, place goes absolutely nuts. I don't know how the crowd's even going to react in this match. Mox is beloved by the AEW fan base. MJF is getting cheered more times than he's not. He's getting a pop every time he comes out, most times. That said, I think MJF goes back to his roots, somehow gets help or cheats, and wins the title. Because I don't think, with everything going on with Mox and the Blackpool Combat Club and all that other stuff, I don't see him turning heel.
I think Regal turns on Moxley, and he joins forces with MJF. But the firm is a red herring. The Dynamite ring has to be involved, because like their first match, the paradigm shift was banned from the match and Moxley still used it. This time MJF is saying he's not going to use that Dynamite ring.
Yeah.
So what would be the reverse of that? Him actually using the Dynamite ring. So maybe it's William Regal that hits Moxley with the Dynamite ring. I say MJF does get his crowning moment, does it nefariously, and he is the new AEW World Champion. And on top of that, I'm making a bold prediction, Ralph. CM Punk will come out and close out that show with a face-to-face with MJF.
So he's not going to be released.
Nope, I don't think so. Until there's a statement that says he's released or CM Punk shows up at some WWE event, I'm not believing any of these reports saying that he's released. They're buying out his contract. The locker room doesn't want him, especially now where MJF is supposed to be this kind of baby face now that the fans are accepting finally. And all the heat's on CM Punk. They just now reverse the roles. Makes too damn sense now. And Punk, how does he get the title match? Easy. He never lost the title to begin with.
Yep.
The reason's already there. You don't need stupid rankings to manipulate it for it to happen. Thank God they got rid of those rankings anyway. Check out the next clip from the Squared Circle Psychobabble by clicking the thumbnail on the screen right here. Or you could get full episodes ad-free by joining SCPB Plus. Click the icon right here. And of course, give us the 1, 2, 3. 1, like this video. 2, join the Babble section and subscribe. 3, ring the bell and be notified for the next video clip of the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.